Dear students, now we are going to discuss about the lateral ventricle. I already told you what is meant by ventricle in case of brain. Ventricles are the cavities seen inside the brain. Okay, so lateral ventricle means it is the cavity seen inside the cerebrum. Okay, so we are having two cerebral hemispheres, so we are having two lateral ventricles. So lateral ventricles are the cavities seen inside the cerebral hemispheres. See here, this is what the left hemisphere, left cerebral hemisphere. Inside the left cerebral hemisphere, here we can see a cavity below the corpus callosum. See, this is the corpus callosum. Below the corpus callosum, this cavity, this is what the lateral ventricle. So clear. What is meant by lateral ventricle? Lateral ventricles are the cavities seen inside the cerebral hemispheres. Then each lateral ventricle is having a central part and three horns. What are the three horns? Anterior horn, posterior horn, and inferior horn. Lateral ventricle is having one central part, then three horns: anterior, posterior, inferior. How? See, approximately the here. This is the central part, and here in this image we can see the anterior horn also. See here, here comes the anterior horn, which is extending into the frontal lobe. Okay, so anterior horn, then central part, then inferior horn. It is extending into the temporal lobe. This is the temporal lobe. So inferior horn, and the posterior horn is not there. It is seen inside the occipital lobe, which is extending into the occipital lobe. See here, approximately here comes the posterior horn. So anterior horn, then central part, posterior horn, then inferior horn. Those are the parts of this lateral ventricle. See here in this image. See, this is an anterior horn, this area. Then comes the central part, then inferior horn and posterior horn. So these are the parts of the lateral ventricle. So the introduction point is clear. What is meant by lateral ventricle? What are the parts of the lateral ventricle? Now we are going to see the details of these parts. First, central part. Central part. What are the boundaries? We will see the boundaries of the central part. Roof is formed by the inferior surface of the corpus callosum. We'll say that. See, this is the corpus callosum. What are the parts of the corpus callosum? Rostrum. This area of the corpus callosum, it is known as rostrum. Rostrum continues with a bend known as genu. This bend is known as genu. Then body. And this posterior thickest part, this one is a splenium. So these are the parts of the corpus callosum: rostrum, genu, body, and splenium. So this area, here comes a central part. So automatically roof is formed by the body of the corpus callosum. Correct? No? Superiorly it is bounded by corpus callosum. See this dark colored area, this is what the cavity. And this area, only this area, this is a central part. This area, this is the anterior horn. Okay, so here, this is a central part. Superiorly it is bounded by corpus callosum, no doubt. Inferiorly, here we can see a structure. This is the thalamus. Okay, so inferiorly it is bounded by thalamus. Not only the thalamus, see here we can see another structure. This one is a caudate nucleus. I told you the parts of the caudate nucleus. See, this is the head of the caudate nucleus. Head which continues with the body. See, head. Here we can see the head clearly. See, this one is a head. Head continues with the body. Body continues with the tail. See, this is what the shape of the caudate nucleus. Head of the caudate nucleus, body of the caudate nucleus, then tail of the caudate nucleus. So along with this thalamus, here we can see the body of the caudate nucleus. Those two structures forms the floor of the central part, or inferiorly this central part is bounded by this thalamus and the body of the caudate nucleus. So central part, superiorly it is bounded by inferior surface of the corpus callosum, clear. Then floor is formed by body of the caudate nucleus and the upper surface of the thalamus. Along with that we can see the stria terminalis and the thalamostriatum. See this one is a sagittal, not sagittal, coronal section of the cerebrum. So this is the thalamus, lateral to the thalamus, caudate nucleus. Between those two, see stria terminalis and the thalamostriatum. And here superiorly corpus callosum. So inferior surface of the corpus callosum. Now medially it is bounded by septum pellucidum. This central part, medially, medial wall is formed by septum pellucidum. What is that septum pellucidum? See here in this image. See here we can see a thin sheet like a structure here. Okay, this thin sheet like a structure, this one is a septum pellucidum, and here we have removed that septum pellucidum. That's why we can say the lateral ventricle. So here also we have to remove the septum pellucidum in order to see the lateral ventricle. So medially it is bounded by this septum pellucidum. Okay, so here this complete area is closed by the septum pellucidum. So medially it is bounded by septum pellucidum. So superiorly body of the corpus callosum, inferiorly thalamus and body of the caudate nucleus, medially septum pellucidum. So central part is clear. Okay, roof, floor, superiorly, then inferior boundary, then medial boundary. Okay, then anterior horn. Now we are going to see the anterior horn, this area. What are the boundaries? So superiorly, no doubt, body of the corpus callosum. Okay, so roof is formed by corpus callosum, body of the corpus callosum, or superiorly, body of the corpus callosum. Inferiorly, this structure, what is that, a rostrum of the corpus callosum. Along with the rostrum, here we can see the head of the caudate nucleus. Okay, so head of the inferiorly, head of the caudate nucleus and rostrum. Superiorly, body of the corpus callosum, anterior part of the body. Okay, so superiorly, anterior part of the body of the corpus callosum, inferior boundary or floor is formed by rostrum and head of the caudate nucleus. And anterior boundary is formed by this genu. So anterior wall or anterior boundary formed by genu, floor is formed by rostrum as well along with the rostrum, caudate nucleus, head of the caudate nucleus. Then medially septum pellucidum. Okay, we'll see that. See here also, here this is the opposite side. So this is anterior horn here. Okay, so here also it is closed by the septum pellucidum. Here also it is closed by the septum pellucidum. So medial wall is formed by septum pellucidum. Mainly this anterior, sorry, roof, anterior wall, floor, and a medial wall. So those are the boundaries of this anterior horn. Anterior horn, which is seen inside the frontal lobe. Okay, what are the boundaries? Superiorly, body of the corpus callosum, inferiorly, rostrum of the corpus callosum, along with the rostrum, caudate nucleus, anteriorly, genu, medially, septum pellucidum. Okay, then posterior horn. Posterior horn, it's a slit-like space, which is seen inside the occipital lobe. See here, posterior horn is extending into the occipital lobe. Okay, what are the boundaries of this posterior horn? See, this one is a coronal section of the posterior horn. So this is the posterior horn. This dark colored area, this is the posterior horn. Here it is having only the roof and floor. Okay, roof is formed by the tapetum. Tapetum, I told you what is that. Tapetum is a continuation of the fibers of the corpus callosum. It's a thin sheet like a continuation of the corpus callosum. So roof is formed by that part of the corpus callosum known as tapetum. Then floor is formed by these two bulgings. Okay, this bulging is formed by the fibers of the forceps major known as bulb of posterior horn. This bulging it is produced by fibers of the forceps major. I told you what is that forceps major along with the corpus callosum. Okay, so anyway, this is what the fibers of the corpus callosum. These fibers of the corpus callosum produce a bulging here known as bulb of posterior horn, and another bulging. See this bulging. It is produced by the calcarine sulcus. It is known as calcar abyss. Calcar abyss. So two bulgings. Floor is having two bulgings. See this one, bulb of posterior horn. This one, calcar abyss. So floor is formed by these two bulgings. Roof is formed by the tapetum. Okay, see. So floor and the medial wall. I told you it is a slit-like space. So only having roof and floor. So floor is formed by bulb of posterior horn and calcar abyss. Roof is formed by the tapetum. Then inferior horn. Inferior horn, see, it is extending into the temporal lobe. Okay, what are the boundaries of this inferior horn? Inferior horn is also having only two boundaries, roof and floor. Roof is formed by the tapetum. Along with the tapetum, there we can see the tail of the caudate nucleus, which ends in amygdaloid body. So tail of the caudate nucleus, which continues or which joins with the amygdaloid body. See here, this is the tapetum. See this dark colored area, this one is the inferior horn. Okay, so this is the tapetum. Along with the tapetum, here we can see the tail of the caudate nucleus. Tail ends in the amygdaloid body. And floor is formed by here also two bulgings. Okay, see this bulging which is produced by the collateral sulcus. See, this is the collateral sulcus. I told you along with the inferior surface of the cerebrum. What is meant by collateral sulcus? See, this one is a collateral sulcus. This collateral sulcus produces one elevation here in this ventricle. Or this bulging, it is known as collateral eminence. Collateral eminence. The next bulging which is produced by the hippocampus. So floor is formed by collateral eminence and hippocampus. See this structure. This is what the hippocampus. See, hippocampus like a structure. So this one is a hippocampus. So anyway, this bulging, it is floor is having two bulgings. First bulging is produced by the hippocampus. Second bulging, which is produced by the collateral sulcus, it is known as collateral eminence. So these two structures forms the floor, and these structures forms the roof. So these are some of the details of this ventricle, lateral ventricle. So clear, lateral ventricle means it is a cavity seen inside the cerebrum, and those are the details. The remaining details you have to read it from your textbook.